endangered primate populations, so we're going to talk about endangered primates. We are going to cover 4 different species in today's episode, including the western lowland gorilla, the eastern lowland gorilla, the chimpanzee, and the gibbons. We'll talk about the status of each of these animals. There's some surprises that I think you might find interesting, and we'll also talk about what we can do to protect them from extinction. This is part of our Great Apes series. So if you want to see more videos like this, please let us know by liking this video and subscribing to this channel. We are posting new videos every week. Okay, let's go through one by one. Let's start with the western lowland gorilla. The western lowland gorilla is listed as critically endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, which is the IUCN. It has been listed as critically endangered since 2003. The population decline is estimated at 25 to 50% over the last 20 years. This rate of decline qualifies them for being considered critically endangered. They have an estimated population size of between 100 and 200,000 individuals left in the wild. That's a big range. And they're only found in a few countries, primarily in Cameroon, the Central African Republic, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, and Nigeria. The biggest threats to the western lowland gorilla are the bushmeat trade, unsuboptimal agricultural practices in their habitat, and the expansion of oil palm plantations and logging concessions in their habitat. And they are also affected by civil unrest and poaching. Next, let's talk about the eastern lowland gorilla. Now, this is a little bit of a surprise. You may not realize that there's actually 2 different species of gorillas, the eastern and the western. And that's because we have eastern lowland gorillas and we have western lowland gorillas. And both of those are considered critically endangered. But the eastern lowland gorilla is listed as endangered, not critically endangered. And it seems counterintuitive, right? Because you hear about mountain gorillas, and there are fewer of them than eastern lowland gorillas. In fact, there's around 500 mountain gorillas left in the wild, compared to about 40,000 eastern lowland gorillas. And yet the eastern lowland gorilla is not considered critically endangered. Why is that? Well, the International Union for Conservation of Nature uses certain thresholds for population size. And if your population size is above 2,500, then you are not considered critically endangered. If it's between 250 and 2,500, then you are. And if it's below 500, you're definitely considered critically endangered. So although the eastern lowland gorilla is certainly threatened, they are not considered critically endangered because their population is above 2,500. Their trend, though, is decreasing, and it is estimated that the population will continue to decrease in the future. So it wouldn't be surprising if they end up being considered critically endangered in the next couple of decades. The biggest threat to the eastern lowland gorilla is the same as the western lowland gorilla, and that is hunting primarily for bushmeat. Next, let's talk about chimpanzees. So all great apes are currently listed as endangered. Chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, and orangutans are all listed as endangered. So that should not come as a surprise. What might be a surprise to you is that gibbons are listed as vulnerable. When you think about great apes, you typically think about chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, and orangutans. Gibbons are actually considered to be their own category. They're not lumped in with the great apes. But nevertheless, they are primates just like the other ones that we mentioned. The International Union for Conservation of Nature lists 20 different species of gibbons as endangered. 7 are listed as critically endangered. 6 are endangered, 7 are vulnerable, and none are listed as extinct or near threatened. This surprised me a little bit because when I think about gibbons, I don't think there's very many of them left in the wild. Maybe that's because I've seen them in zoos and they seem rare, but I was surprised to learn that they're not considered critically endangered. Although there are some species of gibbons that are critically endangered, Most of them are listed as vulnerable, and that is because their population sizes are still relatively large. To qualify as endangered, you need to meet certain criteria. One of the criteria is that your population has to have declined by at least 30% over 10 years or 3 generations. For gibbons, they have not met that threshold. However, the overall trend for most gibbon species is a decreasing population, and they are projected to continue to decline in the future. The biggest threat to gibbons is primarily habitat loss due to deforestation driven by the palm oil industry, logging, mining, and agriculture, and also they are sometimes hunted for bushmeat. Now, there are organizations working to protect these animals. One organization that does a great job of conserving great apes is the Ape Action Africa. Ape Action Africa is based in Cameroon, and they work to conserve great apes and their habitats, and they do this through community engagement, education, sustainable economic development projects, advocacy, and direct conservation action. One of the things they do is run an anti-poaching unit. They have anti-poaching patrols that go out into the forest to stop poachers and to stop illegal activities. They also support communities that live near forests that contain great apes. They do this by providing educational opportunities and training, and helping them to develop sustainable economic opportunities so that they don't rely on poaching or logging or things like that. They also work to restore degraded forest ecosystems, and they do this through tree planting, reforestation, and agroforestry projects. They also work with local leaders and law enforcement officials to combat poaching and illegal logging. And they engage in advocacy to raise awareness about great ape conservation issues. Now let's talk about another organization. This organization is called the Gibbon Conservation, and they focus primarily on gibbons. And their mission is to protect and conserve gibbons and their habitats through research, conservation, education, and community outreach. The Gibbon Conservation focuses primarily on 5 species of gibbons. Those are the black-crested gibbons, the Bornean gibbons, the Sumatran gibbons, the Lar gibbons, and the Muller's gibbons. And they conduct research to better understand the ecology and behavior of these gibbons. They work to protect gibbons and their habitats from threats such as deforestation and poaching. They also work with local communities to promote sustainable land use practices and reduce the demand for bushmeat. And they engage in education and outreach to raise awareness about gibbons and their conservation status. And they also work to develop and implement effective strategies for protecting gibbons and their habitats. There are also other organizations such as the Wildlife Conservation Society and the World Wildlife Fund that work to protect great apes, including gorillas, chimpanzees, and gibbons. These organizations work to protect great apes and their habitats from threats such as deforestation, poaching, and disease. They also work with local communities to promote sustainable land use practices and reduce the demand for bushmeat. And finally, there's something you can do. You can donate to these organizations. You can volunteer your time, or you can spread awareness by sharing what you learn with others. Every little bit helps. And by supporting these organizations, you can help protect these amazing animals and their habitats for future generations to enjoy. If you liked this video, check out this video on caring for aging apes in sanctuaries. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. We're posting new videos every week. And you can check out my book, The Ape House, on Amazon. All the links are provided below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.